imagine that somebody could be fleeing on foot in an ED or inpatient, and we might be standing idly by when that inmate could be shot, and that's really scary. But their standing orders are, if an inmate is fleeing, if the circumstances are right, of course, they need to shoot on sight. And I asked him how that exactly works, but he said that essentially what it comes down to is the legal definition of escape. So if that person is viewed as escaping, then legally they are supposed to shoot on sight. It's a hard concept to take in. It's hard to imagine it happening right in front of us. But the idea here is that if this is a guy who, let's say he's murdered people and he uses violence, we need to know that he's not going to do that anymore. When somebody escapes, we don't know in that moment if that person actually gets out of the ED and leaves on foot. We don't know if they're going to steal grandma's car. We don't know if they're going to kill grandma just to get her car. We don't know what's going to happen next. And corrections officers, their first priority is public safety. It's a hard thing to think about. And, when you think about all of the police shootings that have been in the media and stuff like that, if the public safety is at a severe risk from this person escaping, they have to stop them. So, I'm not going to get into my opinions over that. I'm just saying that that's what he explained. And imagine after that, they're going to have the media all over them. It's going to be awful. Their family might be threatened by that, their job, they might have to leave where they live just to be able to survive that. So it's a complicated situation. Now they do, depending on what state you're in, they may have other tools besides a gun on them to be able to help de-escalate that situation. They might have pepper spray. If you happen to be in a situation where you are in the middle of a scuffle between an inmate and a CO, be warned, you might get pepper sprayed, and pepper spray is horrible. That stuff is evil. So you just, depending on what's going on, oh, somebody says they lost audio. Can you guys hear me? I hope so. I'll wait to see if anybody else can respond saying, can you guys hear me? Okay, cool. Thank you, Susie. I've been trying to keep an eye on comments. I have this little holder thing that I'm holding my phone in. There we go. All right, you guys can hear me now? Can you still? Thank you, Donna and Lauren. All right, and I see a like, so I'm going to keep going, okay? All right, so I asked him to talk to me about the role of nurses and doctors and what he sees. What does he see that puts us more at risk? Because, I mean, really, that we need to look at that too. How do we influence the situation? He did say that one huge risk factor for us is we get really soft on the inmates. So the inmates are grateful for us. They're happy that we're there, in general. I'm not saying all of them. But not only might they be grateful for us, but they're also manipulators. They are, quite honestly, they are bad people. Somebody does not get into a medium or maximum penitentiary without being violent, without rape, without murder, without multiple violent offenses. You don't find people in medium or maximum penitentiaries who were good people. So he said that we have to always have that in the back of our minds, that these people are not good people. We may walk in and take care of somebody who says all their please and thank yous, who's complimentary, and who's really a nice person. Well, they're not, and we have to be mindful of that. This actually kind of conflicts with our teaching. The background of nurses, I don't know if doctors focus as much on this in their training or PAs, but I know part of the nursing process is to treat everybody the same, to give everybody the same care, and to try to use empathy and try to be good to everybody. And it's going to be a struggle for us when we are engaging in care to fulfill that responsibility, but also understand this person is dangerous. This person is not a good person, no matter how conflicted you are after meeting them. But, there's another thing on the other side of that, though. Treat them well. Keep your guard up. Don't be neglectful. He noted that sometimes he seems to have two different kinds of nurses that he'll run into. One kind of nurse, overly nice, overly attentive, just really all up in the good care of this inmate. But then the other kind he'll find is ones that he doesn't see all shift. He will sit in that room with his inmate and he will see nobody the whole shift. So don't let your guard down, but do your job. I mean, you do still have a job. Another thing that he said that really surprised me, but at the same time, I mean, it's not something that I ever would have thought of. Let's say you have an inmate and they're crashing, or they're kind of going unstable, and you need a whole bunch of people in the room, and you've got nurses and respiratory and the doctors, and everybody's in there all at one time. The instinct of mine, and I know anybody else, especially if you've ever been in ICU as a healthcare worker, the first instinct is to get all the unnecessary people away. And the problem with that is you're pushing away the officer who is there to make sure that you're not about to get assaulted or injured in some way. So when your instinct is telling you to push that officer away, don't. You need that officer there. It's incredibly possible that the inmate has done something to maybe make them crash, or they've done something to make it look like they're crashing, or anything. You don't know the motives of that inmate, and as far as you know, unless their pulse stops, they could at any second be alert and oriented, and you need to know that should something happen all of a sudden, that you've got that officer there who is keeping you safe. Otherwise, he can't stop anything. If you're walking up to this inmate who's probably crashing, and if you're starting IVs and you're doing all this stuff where they could improvise a weapon out of if they got it from you, you're thinking your attention is on the patient, their medical being. Your attention is not distracted from that normally because you're an autopilot. You don't have a person standing there making sure that that inmate is not ready to come up at you and do something. So if you have a crashing patient situation, or if you have a busy patient come in, maybe they're post-op or they're going into the OR, you have to let the officer at the bedside. You cannot push them away. And this is for your safety, theirs, and everybody else. So I asked him at this point if he would share some final thoughts with me. If he would think about just his experiences on detail with inmates. What would he want to say if he was the one sitting here with you guys? So one of the things, like I've already mentioned, one of the things that he said that's really important for us to keep in mind is medium to max inmates end up there because they've raped, they've murdered, and they've assaulted. No one's there because they're a nice person. Don't get soft. And the word that he used repeatedly throughout this interview was predator. He says even the nice ones, they're predators. So they are looking for opportunities. They are looking for ways to sway you. They may run you frequently for different meds so that you're in there more. They are predators. They are looking for space to do something wrong. They're looking for it. Now, let's see. Sorry, I took notes. I'm trying to make sure I'm not missing anything. One request that the CO made that he felt was pretty important was, while you are addressing the CO, if you know his first name, never use it. And this is for a couple of reasons. I mean, we think about our name badges and how our name badges might have first and last name. And, you know, some hospitals, that's the way they want them. But I know there is major pushback for that, and a lot of people really want their last name off. It's the same with COs. They don't want the inmates to know their first and last name. But also at the same time, knowing the CO by his last name kind of creates a line of authority. It's, you know, you call me by my last name, you are respecting me. Sometimes inmates get a little weird and they undermine authority or whatever when they know the CO's first name. So it's important that when you address them, you use their last name only. He said that the only thing, if you are in a hospital with an inmate and you feel like, you know, they're okay, they're easy, the only thing predictable about your inmate patient is he's a predator. So always keep that in mind, and don't go into the room afraid, because you know predators, they look for fear. So walk in with your head up, walk in with confidence, don't be afraid, but never let your guard down. So let's see. He wanted to make sure that I said a couple of times that every situation for a CO with an inmate is going to be very different. Every state is going to be different. Every institution is going to be different. So even though I'm telling you this stuff, it may not be the exact same for where you are, but you are allowed to ask. Part of this isn't just making sure things are in place for leading the way to prevention, but also, you know, your own personal safety. If there are small steps that you can take to help protect you, then by all means take them. So he also added to make sure that you guys know it's hard to respond to each situation verbally without knowing details of each situation. So if you guys have any questions, he may not be able to answer them in very much detail except to say, I don't know, because state by state it's different. Also, corrections officers think that nurses are irritated with them, which I thought was kind of funny when he said that. He thinks that nurses are irritated with them being in the room. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we do push them away a lot. I mean, look, we got a job to do, and me to you, nurse to nurse, if you are a nurse, or healthcare professional to healthcare professional, or even just, you know, person to person if you are not working in healthcare. If you're trying to do something, like if you're going in and I've got to give meds, I've got to do this, I've got to do the other, we don't want to have somebody in our way. It's frustrating. But, you know, he's there doing his job, just like we're there doing our job, and we have to work together if we're going to protect safety. We have to work together. It's important. So try not to be irritated with him. He's really there helping you, and every single day he goes to work surrounded by these people. So it's just, you know, be nice. So to wrap it up, I actually asked him, we didn't really talk much about the situation that happened in Delner, but at the end I did ask him, you know, I told him about what happened, and I asked him, you know, what is his initial response? And the reason I'm going to mention this, I'll tell you in a second, but there is a really big reason why I asked him. He said that his very first thing was, why was the CO alone? And it's a good question. So he told me the story about a few years ago, or I'm sorry, like 20 years ago, there was a situation in his state where somebody actually did have kind of a situation that, I can't remember if it was a hostage situation or what, but there was only one CO present. So after that, his state adopted legislation, or I guess maybe it was directives, I'm not sure which one, probably legislation, to make sure that there are always 2 COs with every single medium to maximum inmate while they're out, at the hospital or whatever. So that was really what he was bothered by in that situation, was that there was only 1 CO. I know that we saw from somebody's post a couple days ago that there are now 2 COs with every single inmate, and that's wonderful. So I think that it's good that they've made that change, and I hope that they really do stick with it. I hope that they write it down in the books so that it's official and not just a, hey, we're going to do this sort of thing. But here's what I propose to you guys, and I hope that you will make this happen. While we are looking at legislative changes, while we are putting this together, what we also need to do is make sure that the states, or even if we get this at the federal level, we need to make sure that every single state officially puts on the books that from the time a person is a detainee all the way through incarceration, there need to be 2 officers. I've been talking to a couple of different officers in a couple of different states to see how they compare with each other. I honestly don't know how it goes here in Maryland. I do know in Delaware, I'm sorry, I don't know if there are any laws there or any policies there, but in my experience, the cops would drop them off with us and then they would go. And I don't know what it takes to make them stay, but I don't remember, except for the 72-hour hold sometimes, I don't know what it takes for them to even just leave 1 officer. But what I would like to push for is that if you have some kind of an offender, especially a violent one, if you have an offender, we want to make sure that there are always 2 officers, whether it be PD or COs, always 2 officers with every offender. 2. We've seen that 1 is not safe. Also, because we have seen a theme of inmates taking advantage of their bathroom breaks because they get unshackled, we need to make sure that we always have urinal and bedpan present in the room, and for our own safety, we need to always advocate for the officers not unshackling them. As undignified as this is, we need to slide the bedpan under that butt, or we need to make sure that they have a urinal. We can help them position themselves in the urinal, and we can walk away if we really want to or if they really insist. But this is our safety, this is the safety of everybody else, and if we can prevent them from being unshackled in the first place, we should. We just should. That is what I've been learning through talking and all the research, is that that is a major weak spot. So, anyway, that was a whole lot of talking. I think I've just now talked for 50 straight minutes. I'm sorry. But I'm going to grab my phone out here, see if we have any comments yet. If you guys have any questions, please, please, please don't be afraid to ask. Let's see. I wanted to keep Dalnor, but hearing that it we're talking about the name of the group. I wanted to keep Dalnor, but hearing that it affects her and how it could continue to affect her negatively, I agree. All right, Callie, here's the thing. I started with Dalnor because of the recognition. I think it was a great name to start with, and I didn't want to change it too quickly. But I don't want to say too much, so I'll keep it to myself mostly. I won't go into detail, but I have received messages about the holes in their security and how, things could have been a little bit different or better. So I've not wanted to give Dalnor Hospital the publicity, if you want to know the truth. I was glad to get a response, and I'm glad to start renaming this and making it what it's going to be. So, Yes, and she hates the name, so I was glad to finally make that next step. But yeah, she really hated the name, so I was glad to go ahead and get rid of that. Let's see. Susie in Minnesota. I can't wait to get started there too. If you haven't joined the Minnesota group, just go ahead and look for it and we'll add you as soon as I see your request. From Michelle, I find a lot of patient visits in the ED that are brought in by law enforcement are dumps and not appropriate for that setting. I'd love to hear thoughts on that. Oh, God, Michelle. Seriously. I'm not sure that this CO would actually be the person to ask about this. I did ask a friend who is on PD, and he actually wasn't able to answer. And actually, I asked two different people this, one today and one before. They were not able to adequately answer my question because in their city and in the other one state, they always have an officer with everybody. One of them was even shocked to find out that this is an issue, to have ED dumps. So, I mean, honestly, like, it's nice to know that we have places that we can look at to maybe get us started on proper wording for legislation, though. So, yeah, I'll ask the CO if he might have any thoughts about that, but I don't know if he will because it's a PD and corrections do things a little bit differently from each other. They have different rules. There is a difference between city jails with no medical and county jail or prison. Kelly, yes. Yes, hopefully I kind of addressed that. Donna, true, but experience can make us jaded. Yeah, it can. It can. It gets hard to focus on doing what we have to do without either having compassion go way off the chain or have disgust or jadedness really kill our decisions and our decision-making capacity and how attentive we are. So we really have to be careful about that. It's a difficult line, and I mean, it always has been. It's just, now we're paying a little bit more attention to that. And maybe that's not such a bad thing. Susie says, this was awesome. Thanks so much for gathering this info. You're welcome. I was glad to. It was a great conversation. I loved it. I appreciate having this other perspective. Understanding the various rules helps us be better at our job. And, there it is, helps us to be better humans. I agree. And that's why I really want to make sure that we have a law enforcement presence here, because we know our jobs, we don't know theirs. And their job is very kind of, I don't want to say secretive. I mean, they're kind of HIPAA-fied just like we are. So they really can't say much because of the same reasons we can't. And they don't comment publicly on the way things are done or the way they want to do things or the way they should be done, because it makes them and the rest of the officers they work with look bad. So I was really amazed. I've been trying to talk my husband into coming on this, and for that reason he won't. And he didn't want to let me do an interview, otherwise I would have done that yesterday. But, I mean, that's why I'm so thankful to this CO for coming forward. And, I mean, he won't even let me say what state he's from. So, yeah, I'm glad to get the law enforcement perspective on here. I do hope to have a police officer also answer similar questions and talk it through, because like I said, they do things differently. Police has their own stuff, and corrections does things their own way. So, let's see, that's what I was going to say. This is from Susie. Why do they need to go to the bathroom when they can use a urinal or a bedpan? I agree wholeheartedly. They are locked for a reason. Yes. And it does make you wonder kind of, right? Why would they get limbs loosened from their shackles just to have a BM or to urinate when we have tools for that? I partially think that maybe the officer just isn't as comfortable with bodily waste as we are. I hate to put it that way, but we're used to urinals, we're used to cleaning up bedpans, we're used to that. And if you have an inmate come in and they need to have a BM, and they're going to be, incredibly embarrassed at the idea of, pooping in some plastic cup, it probably just seems easier to not force them to do that. It probably, in that situation, doesn't seem unnatural to expect them to use a bedpan or a urinal, if that actually makes sense. But, anyway, yeah, I don't know why they would do that either. And then Lauren, oh gosh, Lauren, I'm not going to do that. I think it's Svensson. What I was thinking is that when there is one officer, what happens when the officer takes a bathroom break? Guess the inmate is unattended. Okay, I forgot to talk about that. So in the hospital setting, like I said, this officer that I talked to, his state, there are always 2 officers right there with the inmate at all times. But there is even if there was just one officer with the inmate, regardless of what's going on, there is always what is called a rover. So if you have an inmate in a hospital, you're going to have the COs that are assigned to that inmate in the room with them. But you're also going to have what's called a rover. It's kind of like, if we didn't take a patient load and we just were hospital float, it's exactly the same thing. So the one that is the rover, they are actually carrying a weapon on them. So you've got, if it is done right, if it is done with the states that I'm aware of, you'll have 2 COs in the room. One of them will have a weapon and the other one will be unarmed, and they will stay in the room with the inmate at all times. Then you will also have a third person who will float the hospital, and if there are other inmates there, and frequently there might be, because prisons usually have contracts with hospitals where that's the only place they'll take them. You'll have one person doing the rounds and just checking on everybody, and that person will let the COs that are with the inmates go to the bathroom or go have their lunch. So you don't have to worry about the one CO, hopefully. You don't have to worry about that. If the CO needs to use the bathroom, there will always be somebody there. So Susie says, that may be something we pull the officers aside and let them know. Urinals, bedpans aren't optional and is safer for all involved. Advocate for ourselves and the rest of the public. Exactly. Exactly. And this is actually why I really wanted to do a webcast like this one. I know I've been on for an hour now, but it was just really important to me that you guys know from a CO's perspective what's going on, and you guys know a little bit about what you can do if you do happen to have inmates as your patients. So, gosh, on that note, I think actually that's all I have. That's plenty, right? If you guys have any specific questions for a CO, go ahead and put them down there in the comments. And, yeah, I hope you have a great night. Thank you for being here, and let's go make change. You guys have a good night. Bye!